everybody, and welcome to Cooking with Asparagus.
You know that spring has arrived when you have that first bite of fresh, grassy asparagus. Asparagus is actually part of the lily family, and it has been used for many, many generations. It's been used by ancient people medicinally. For example, the Greek people used it to treat toothaches and bee stings. Ancient Chinese people used it to treat arthritis. We use it because it's a culinary delight, and we're going to teach you how to use that today. When you purchase asparagus, there's a couple things to keep in mind. First of all, it is a spring vegetable, so it's available from April until June, depending on where you live. And that's when you should buy it, because that's when it is at its peak, along with some of the other really nice seasonal foods at this time. Radishes are available when asparagus is in season. That's when you start seeing strawberries in the market, and they're just beautiful. Snow peas, garlic, green onions. So these are foods that go very, very well together, and that's great because they're all in season at the same time. Now, when you buy asparagus, you can buy different sizes. As you can see here, we have some that are have very thick shoots and some that are almost pencil thin, if not even just a little bit thinner. Now, this just depends on preference. Interestingly, the thicker shoots are a little bit older. Most vegetables, as they get older, become more tough, but asparagus is not necessarily that way. As a matter of fact, they tend to be more juicier, more juicy, and just a little bit thicker and have more tooth bite to them. And it's individual preference. I tend to like the big fat stalks. Some people like the real thin stalks. Now, when you buy them, they're sold in bunches, and oftentimes you'll see them standing in water, which is a nice way because it keeps them fresh. What you're going to look for is stalks that are not wilted at all, like these are nice and fresh, and see that the heads or the ends of the spears are very tightly closed. Once those start kind of opening up and they get wilty, you know they're past their prime. You also want to look at the stalk down here. This should be moist still and not real woody as you're selecting your asparagus. Now, in terms of varieties, green is the most common variety, but you can also buy white asparagus. I couldn't find any fresh in the market, but this is a bottle of pickled white asparagus. And this is actually the same asparagus, but it's been mounded with dirt to keep it away from the sun. That way no chlorophyll ever develops and it stays white. It's a little bit more delicate than the green asparagus, but it's essentially the same flavor. Some people prefer that. It was fun when I was in France watching that grow in fields clear across the valleys. You can also buy what's called purple asparagus, and I didn't have any to show you, but it is either green or white on the bottom, and then it has a purple tip. It tends to be more expensive, and it really doesn't have much of a different flavor, so you'd have to make that decision if you wanted it for the dramatic look or not. Now, when you bring your asparagus home, how do you care for it? Well, what I'd recommend is that you just take your bundle of asparagus, wrap a wet paper towel around the bottom, and put it in an airproof container. It's recommended that you use that within 2 to 3 days because that's when it's at its peak, and don't wash it until you get ready to use it. Now, what are you going to do with it? Well, asparagus, the end of it is always tough, unless you get it right out of your garden. But as a general rule, what you're going to want to do is take your asparagus and you're going to want to hold it about in the middle and then at this end and just snap it. And wherever that breaks is the part that's tough and the part that's tender. So you want to throw away the part that's tough. You can either do that or you can save these ends for soup, but you're going to have to puree them or something because they will be a little bit tough, but you can find uses for them. Now, if you have the fat asparagus, one of the things that you can do so that you get a little bit more product out of it is you can actually just take a vegetable peeler and peel about the bottom half to the bottom third of the asparagus, and you end up, then it makes it very edible, and so you end up with a little bit more product. One of the things about asparagus that's a little bit unique is you have to cook it to eat it. It's really not any good unless it's been cooked. Now, we're going to teach you some ways to cook it, and I think you'll find that it's a lovely spring vegetable.
A lot of people shy away from eating asparagus because they've heard that it gives their urine an unusual aroma. It's been compared to rotten cabbage, rotten eggs, an ammonia-like odor. Even I've heard it described as goldfish bowl water. So the thing that I wanted to just discuss today is that's a very normal thing. Some people even think they have something wrong with their health, and they go to the doctor to say, what's wrong with me? I have this terrible smell about me. But just so you know, it's a very short-lived thing. It's very normal. About half of people can smell that odor, and it's very normal and it goes away. So it's not a reason to not enjoy asparagus when it's in season and delicious. So I hope that puts your mind at ease. I wanted to just talk about a couple of methods to cook asparagus, and as Janet said, the thing to keep in mind is just barely cook it. You really don't want to overcook asparagus because that just makes it turn mushy and really detracts from that fresh flavor that it has, fresh flavor and texture. And so one way to test if it's done is if you can pierce it with a real sharp skewer or a tip of a knife and it's tender. But I really think that it depends so much on whatever your preference is, and if you just take it out of the pan and take a bite of it and see if it's to your liking, that's an even better way to tell when it's done. But for the most part, just cook it gently, not for very long, and that's the main way to remember. One way that a lot of people like asparagus is steamed. And just a couple of tips to keep in mind, and that's just make sure that your water is steaming first before you put the asparagus in. Now, if you have a big enough pan that you can steam it whole, even better, but if you have to break it in half, that's okay too. And then just put it back on the burner for about probably a minute or two for the real skinny stalks and a little bit longer than that for the fatter ones. And then just let that steam for a few minutes. And while that's steaming, I'll just mention microwaving. Same thing, you can break those and just put it into a microwavable bowl. Put a little bit of water in, just a little bit to keep it moist, cover it tightly, and just put that in your microwave probably for about a minute or two, maybe a little bit longer for the bigger ones. Once the asparagus is steamed to the tenderness that you like it, then you can do something called shocking the asparagus. You can do this with any vegetable, but if you know you're going to want to use it, serve it chilled or use it in a chilled recipe, then you just immediately plunge it into ice water, and that stops the cooking process so it doesn't continue to cook. So you can just set that aside and we'll show you some recipes to use that in a few minutes. This is another way that you can easily cook asparagus, and this is my favorite way. It's roasting the asparagus. Just preheat your oven to about 400 degrees. Drizzle it with a little bit of olive oil. Toss it with your hands and put it in the oven probably for try 5 minutes for the thinner ones. Take it out, check it. It might take more like 8 minutes for the bigger stalks. Add a little salt and pepper, and then we'll show you some ways you can season that as soon as that comes out of the oven. You can also put it under the broiler. You'd have to watch it much more carefully that way, but those are both very quick ways to cook asparagus that give a little bit of that caramelized aroma and caramelized flavor. Summertime and you don't want to heat your oven up, this is a real easy way that you could just skewer some asparagus together. You don't even need to use the skewers if you have a grill that the asparagus won't fall through. But just hook them together like this, brush them with a little bit of oil, and you can cook those in just probably a minute or two. And those are the absolute best way to cook the asparagus in the summertime.
I'm going to show you how to make a really nice salad with this asparagus. Again, it's been steamed and then shocked in the ice water and drained and chilled. And all I do is I take about a 1/4 cup of red wine vinegar, about a 1/4 cup and about a tablespoon more of olive oil, and a little bit of salt and pepper. Good way to make a dressing, very inexpensive and much more flavorful than what you can buy pre-made at the grocery store. Anyway, that's what I think. Anyway, you whisk that together. And then I add, about 1 green onion chopped, a small tomato chopped, about a 1/4 of a green pepper chopped, or however much you like. And then about a tablespoon of fresh parsley. I stir that up, pour that over some pre-cooked asparagus. Makes a really pretty dish as well. And then I garnish that with some chopped boiled egg. And if you want, you can pass around a little more dressing to the table as you pass that around to your guests or whomever is eating it, or you might want some yourself. But that makes a really nice asparagus salad. Now you can use those same ingredients for a pasta salad, and we'll show you how to do that. One of the things that I like to do with asparagus is make a pasta salad. And this is a cold dish, but you can also do a similar thing with a hot pasta dish. This has about, 3/4 of a pound of cooked pasta. Today I chose some whole wheat pasta. And all I'm going to do is add some of the cut vegetables that I have. Seasonal green onions, which again are in season when the asparagus is, which is very nice. I had some leftover green peppers, and you may have some in your fridge just chopped up. Just add some of those. I had a little bit of leftover chopped tomatoes, so I'm going to go ahead and add that. And then radishes are very much in season in the spring when the asparagus is. And so we add some slices of radishes to your liking, whatever proportion of vegetables you like. I have some snow peas, which I like to add as well, seasonal variety or seasonal vegetables. And then I have some chilled cooked asparagus that I'm going to add to that. And then one of the things I like to add for a little bit of protein, especially if you're making it a main dish, is just some cubes of cheddar cheese. You can add some Parmesan cheese, whatever you tend to like. And then I use the same vinaigrette that I used on the other asparagus salad. Just pour that over. Give that a toss or two, and you have a really nice pasta salad with some pretty colors, but that asparagus is one of the best parts of this dish.
While asparagus is in season, enjoy it every chance you get. I wanted to just show you a few ways that you can just season it very simply and deliciously to just break up the monotony of it a little bit. You can also add cooked asparagus to omelets, to salads, to lots of things, but these are some ways to just simply cook it any way you'd like to. These can all be served hot or cold, so straight out of the oven, straight off the grill, or after you've shocked it and chilled it a little bit. Put it on a platter and just top it with some of these seasonings, and it really does add some interesting flavor combinations. First one, I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit with some soy sauce and top it with some green onions just for a garnish. That's a very simple way to add some flavor. Second one, if you've never tried sesame oil, buy some. It only costs a couple of dollars. It's just a really strongly flavored oil, so it's a flavoring oil, not a cooking oil. And it gives a nice roasted sesame flavor, and then just sprinkle it with a little bit of toasted sesame seeds. So that gives another flavor combination. One of my personal favorites is when it's hot off the grill. Just sprinkle a little bit of Parmesan cheese over the top. And that's a nice change too. Or you can just sprinkle it with some freshly squeezed lemon juice. That's another good combination. So I hope we've given you some ideas of the different things that you can do with asparagus, and enjoy it every day while it's in season. And don't be afraid if your urine smells unusual. That's perfectly normal. So eat it till you're sick of it. By then it'll be out of season and you'll have to wait till next year.